Hello, and welcome to our prediction series on app dev and cyber resiliency. My name is Paul Nashwati. I am the practice lead and principal analyst for the app dev practice, and I'm joined by Christoph. Christoph, welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Christoph, great to have you here. It's great to have conversations about this topic. As you know, it's super exciting. It's super important for organizations. But like when we jump into the 2025 year and we talk about what's happening around app dev and we talk about cyber resiliency, it couldn't be any more top of mind for clients, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. And actually, as a matter of fact, I'm right now in the process of hosting the Cyber Resiliency Summit 2025 from one of our studios, the one in Palo Alto. So cyber resiliency is definitely top of mind, and it goes across the infrastructure, IT, security. It's really everybody's involved here. It's a team sport.
Yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to that Cyber Resiliency Summit. And then the audience here can actually look at the recordings, right, as well as they come online. So definitely looking forward for that coming out. But no, let's just jump right in. I mean, it's like I said, exciting year 2025. A lot of things are going to kind of come to maturity, I think, in this year. What we see around, in the app dev space is AI augmentation around scaling, right? Scaling those, achieving scale with those projects. We're seeing that organizations are looking to attempt to replace the developers. 50% of these organizations are going to attempt to replace developers with AI-driven systems, but they're going to fail, right? And this is what we're predicting and what we're seeing this based on the research that we have in place. AI tools will really provide that increased assistance for developers, but there needs to be a human in the loop, especially for tasks like code generation, debugging, testing, and the systems really need to catch up to like handling these complex problem solvings, innovation, and collaboration. And I think that really the human element is there. But more importantly, Christoph, I want to ask you the question around this is, how does cyber resiliency and say maybe DevSecOps or even data protection fit into that element?
I mean, think about it this way. If you don't build the processes in and the code in from the beginning, then at some point you may end up having bad surprises. So I think, again, from a resiliency perspective, if you can have it by design as you really engineer whatever solution you're working on, whatever you're developing, then you're a step ahead. And I think it's not something that most DevOps folks or wake up in the morning thinking about. They don't think about recoverability of data or even their application, because that's not what they do. Somebody else has to. And that's really why I said earlier it's a team sport. And that's why it's important to really consider cyber resiliency as a full-fledged sort of process that starts with the first idea on a new app to the actual delivery, and then the management and the retirement of that, or that app.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think that you hit something right on, which is the dev teams, DevSecOps teams and app dev teams, their business KPIs is to push code out the door. They're looking at it going, hey, we need to get this thing out the door, moving. And like, it's really difficult, but because when there is an accountability, if a code goes out the door and it has vulnerabilities in it, it really does come down to, slowing down to go faster. Right, it really putting those kind of belts and suspenders in place in order to make sure things happen. What I also find interesting, I think this kind of goes to another prediction that I think is going to happen within 2025, is organizations are really going to start changing up and go in favor of a unified platform. We're going to see that 50% of organizations are looking to abandon those individual best of breeds DevOps tools and really focus on the unified platforms. This will really help shift towards more of reduced operational complexities. It'll streamline workflows, and it'll improve that integration along organizations to help accelerate delivery cycles without really increasing that overhead that we typically see with this. I think that will help with the data protection and cyber resiliency elements. What do you think?
Absolutely, Paul. I think that's very good news. We've seen this consolidation / best tool for the job battle across multiple segments. I've seen that in data protection for years. We see it in many environments. So when you consolidate, the benefit, though, is, to your point, is operational efficiencies and the ability to apply processes more rigorously and more in a more coherent fashion across the board. So one platform versus multiple, that could make things easier to protect. Now, I say this, obviously, again, there are multiple levels of conversations here. One of them is protecting the platform itself so that it can be recoverable should somebody go after that platform as an attack. Number two is whatever you develop has to have those data protection processes built in, and maybe there are ways you can automate some of that, or at least propose some of those components automatically to the developers. So these are the type of benefits I could see happening with consolidation. But again, it's not a natural thing necessarily unless you really force yourself to think about it, because it's a little beyond the traditional workflow that developers or DevOps, SecOps folks think about every day.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think that if you have all these individual tools out there, it makes it super difficult to make sure that everything is working properly, not just from the operational efficiency side, but the security side, the protection side, and like you said, dev teams and DevSecOps teams typically don't think about, well, if something breaks on the platform, what happens? What's the consequence there? So I think that's something else to consider, which leads, I think, into really another prediction that I see happening, which is developer time is really going to focus on spotlighting productivity challenges, right? What we see in our research is organizations are reporting that they're spending 24% of their time spent coding, right? And that means that they spend the majority of their time consumed with ancillary tasks like designing, testing, debugging, shareholder meetings, things that developers frankly don't like to do, right? And really what we're looking at here, which probably ties back into that first prediction around AI, the reality is organizations will help drive adopting automation and AI for these non-coding activities, and really aiming to shift the balance back towards innovation and the value of creation. And, we're seeing this in our research because a recent survey that we did, 24% of respondents indicated that they want to release code on an hourly basis, yet only 8% were able to do so. And that's a challenge. I think that productivity increase and the challenges that we're seeing with the developer side also impacts the security side and the data protection side. What are your thoughts?
There are multiple levels, I think, of thought on this topic. Number one is, if you're going to release code so often, I'm going to ask a simple question. That's great, but have we really understood all of the consequences from a testing standpoint? Are you breaking something somewhere? Have you really paid attention to that? I mean, we've heard so many stories around unfortunate upgrades. If the pace of code release is going to be accelerated, is the pace of literally quality and testing for interdependencies and potential impacts, has that been also accelerated and automated? And the reason why is because if you put yourself in a situation where you create a failure somewhere, best intentions, but some things goes wrong, well, do you have the recovery capabilities in place? So that's sort of the traditional data protection view. Okay, you're changing something into the environment, whether it's the infrastructure, it's the data, it's something, you could break something in the process. So when you say acceleration, I have to say, hang on, are we ready for that? The other is automation is fantastic. Using AI may actually be the path to building in better security processes and posture generally. So I think it's goodness. But again, think through the development cycle as a fundamental component of a broader cyber resilience and business resilience strategy. That's really the message.
Yeah, and that aligns, right? It tracks to the research that we're seeing on the app dev side. And the reason I would say is, I think this kind of next prediction is probably more near and dear to your heart, which is, we see that security and secure DevOps become non-negotiable when it comes to the SDLC, right? And comes across the CI/CD pipeline. In fact, what we're seeing is as supply chains attacks and zero-day vulnerabilities increase, over 60% of organizations will embed DevSecOps practices as a fundamental requirement, right? And you're kind of hitting on the point here, Christoph, which is, this includes that automation of vulnerability scanning, continuous compliance monitoring, and security training that really embed across the CI/CD pipeline to protect application as well as the infrastructure. So this goes back to the uptime, the keeping things running right. This is definitely in your wheelhouse. It's probably what you're talking about in the Cyber Resiliency Summit this week.
Yeah, lots of conversations, and it's interesting. It's not just the technology. It's not just the data, the storage infrastructure, the recoverability, or great solutions that exist to recover, to constantly test, to go look for stuff, whether in the backups or in the production data. It's also the behavioral component of humans in this. And one of the points you've mentioned is training and security training. Well, there's one thing: our developers are people. Of course, they can be augmented with AI and AI tools, but at the end of the day, I think you've made it very clear that that human component is not going away, and that's great news. Bad news is that it's humans, and this is one of the potential weak links. So, training the individual so that they not only use best practices in their own career and development practice is important, but also they could be targeted. Social engineering is a hot topic these days. Actually, it's the majority of the source of problems based on one of the great vendors we talked to know before at the summit. So I think there is something there as well that's maybe not necessarily fully understood, that needs to be made more visible. And I really appreciate your position on the training piece.
Yeah, and I think it really kind of it's not just a nice to have, right? And a lot of organizations will put these training KPIs in place, right, and to kind of move forward. But I think when I look at it with a dev kind of perspective, right, I think about that data point that I was talking about releasing code very rapidly, right, and organizations are trying to push out more and more applications, right, and I like to use this analogy about Stonehenge, about putting like all these hands underneath the rock and pushing that rock up on top of the other rock. I don't know how it was done, but I don't believe a bunch of hands underneath pushed it up. I think there was some other tools in place. But with that said, it's the same analogy goes to application development. And one of the trends that I guess the final trend I'll leave the audience with here, is really about enabling the business lines to be successful in developing their own code and their own applications. So we're seeing that low code and no code expansion will transform roles, right? We're seeing the adoption of low code and no code platforms will grow over 30%, really empowering that citizen developer to take on the routine task of the application development tasks. So that's a big area of focus. And the trend will also force professional developers to focus more on governance and complex integration, as well as advanced configurations and customizations, elevating their organizational roles. But Christoph, back to your point, though, that training of understanding what they should and should not do, what they should click on, what they shouldn't click on with social engineering, et cetera, all of that stuff is incredibly important, especially when you start pushing the development application development to the citizen developer. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think it's a bit scary, right? I mean, let's get things, your ducks in a row first, right? Do you have, your developers fully trained? Do you have all the best practices in place? There's plenty to do. Is really the development function, inherently part of your cyber resilience strategy? But if it's not, then I don't know. It doesn't sound like a great idea to go push some development functions to essentially end users or business leaders when really you need all that expertise from the onset. So I think that the trend is interesting. It doesn't shock me, and there's plenty more that we'll be able to do because of AI, because of agentic AI, and that could be extremely well managed and extremely well done in terms of data protection, in terms of security. But again, it gives me pause when I look at where we're at now and the fact that maybe a lot of things haven't been done to begin with.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think that there's business and organizational challenges that we talked about on other parts of the series here. We talked about with Scott on AI. We talked about Bob with networking, and now we're talking about the cyber side. The reality of it is the creation of these applications is just getting very much overwhelmed overwhelming the application development teams, and the skills gap issue is a real thing, right? And I don't need to tell the audience or you or anybody else that this is a real, it's a big problem in the market today. So we're seeing these things and things are changing, right? But I think, Christoph, this is just a little taste of what we're seeing in the predictions for 2025. I think that your perspective of cyber resiliency and data protection and the insights are invaluable. I want to thank you for your time today. This has been really great to kind of collaborate with you on this discussion. I also want to thank the audience for participating and watching our session today, but there's a lot here to talk about with Christoph and myself. So feel free to reach out to us at thecubresearch.com.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.